This is Matthew Udenis, the president and principal engineer of Sanctuary Media LLC. And in this video, I'm going to give a little sneak preview of the functionality of our upcoming game RogueVR, which is a roguelike dungeon crawler based on the original roguelike game called Rogue. And when I say it's based on that, it's very similar in the sense that the goal, the objects, the weapons, the potions, the scrolls, the wands, the rings, the armor, are all based on that original game, including some unconventional dungeon monsters, which you'll see some of in just a minute here. It adds kind of some fun to the game to make it a little bit different, but it also creates a game that allows for a lot of replayability because it is procedurally generated dungeons, so it's going to change every time. You can't just go online and find a walkthrough for this. That's not going to work. Every time you play the game, the dungeon map, the weapons, and the items will be different, and what the abilities that they do will not match how they look. It will be different each time. So it's really a game about exploration and discovery. And so let's take a look at the controls, first of all. The controls will be very familiar to anybody who's played like Rec Room or the Lab. Some are a little different, but the main interaction is this trigger here. And then we use the application menu to bring up the inventory and information screen. So you can see your starting inventory here as well as all that information. Let me go ahead and look at it here. And so you've got various stats as a RPG game would: experience levels, gold, strength, hit points, an armor class. And you start off with the default armor and a +1/+1 mace, some food, and there's also going to be a bow and arrow, which is one thing that we need to add to the functionality before the game demo is released. The other thing we need to add is the use of magical scrolls, which is coming up very soon. That's an easy thing to implement. Now, we have a little info screen here which can be turned on or off, as it says here, move help. And one thing that's different than some games is to drop and throw items in this, you'll use the grip on the side of the tool. And this will also be released for Oculus Touch, so the touch controls will be very similar as well with the same kind of functionality. This is a turn-based RPG. So the cool thing about that is a lot of people want games to be real-time. They want to run around like in Skyrim or Call of Duty or Counter-Strike, but that just doesn't really work in VR. It's nauseating if you have the screen moving when your body is not actually moving and your brain's not used to it. It's a very uncomfortable experience for a lot of people, including myself, and I don't get motion sick easily. So this teleportation method, which I've implemented in this game, works very well. And it works especially well for this because it's a turn-based game. So when you move, as I just did, anytime you take an action such as using an item, so I could pick up this potion without using a turn, but I'm not actually going to be using the potion yet. But once I use it, I've used up my turn. Now, these potions are so cool in this game, the way they look. It's super awesome in VR, especially. You would pop the potion cork. I'll just pour some out for my homies. Pouring it out doesn't actually do anything other than waste the liquid. So if you poured it all out, you just wasted a potion. Some of the potions can be bad. Items in this can sometimes be good or bad, and you don't know until you use them or you identify them, such as with the magical scroll of identify. So I'm just going to pour this in my mouth to use it up. And now I can't grab that bottle anymore. It's done. I'm going to go ahead and grab this this wand as well, so you can see how wands work. Now, there's various uses of wands. They don't all shoot things, but a lot of them shoot projectiles. They're very powerful tools in the game, but they do have limited charges they come with, usually like 3 to 5. So, for example, if I click and aim this, Expelliarmus. Okay, so you can see this one's like a magic missile or a fireball, and projectiles a lot of times will be bouncy. They'll bounce off the wall, so you really have to be careful that you're aiming it at your target and firing it correctly, because it can bounce off and hit you if you don't actually hit something else. Once you've used up all your charges, you might as well drop it because it's not useful anymore. I'm going to go ahead and grab and equip the mace, because this is going to be your main weapon that you use to battle creatures with. There are also projectile weapons, such as throwing stars right here. And you can see, let's throw this down here. That wasn't too bad, actually. Usually I'm a pretty bad ninja. One cool dynamic in this game, or mechanic, is that you can quickly store. You'll see that you interact with things using your empty hands here, like you normally would. But you can't interact when you have something in your hand. So the way to make this more realistic is you can reach behind your back, and you'll feel haptic feedback, and then you can store it quickly on your back. Okay, so this way you can have one item in your left and right hand that's easily equipable from the back without actually using a turn when you do that. Otherwise, you have to go to your inventory screen here and equip or unequip things by selecting them. See, I just took off my armor, which you don't probably want to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and explore and see if we can find some of the monsters that are in here. There's a hobgoblin, which I've placed, and he's somewhere around, but I don't know where he went, so we have to find... most of the monsters wander around. There he is over there. So you can see the shadow of the hobgoblin as well as an ice monster. Ice monsters generally don't move. They're not actually that powerful, but they freeze you, and then other monsters can hit you while you're paralyzed. That AI has not been programmed on there yet, but you can see... Ooh, the goblin's coming towards me. Let me back up here. Okay, so right now, their attack functionality has not been implemented yet. So right now I just have a little pet hobgoblin. But I can also attack him. I missed in that case, so it didn't do anything. Missed him again. I keep missing. Now the battle system, you'll notice I'm actually hitting him, but it's set up like Dungeons & Dragons where it rolls dice. He has an armor class, and I have a certain attack ability that's affected by bonuses or penalties, such as this has a +1/+1 mace. So I don't know how I keep missing, and this is pretty rare. All right, I did four damage to him that time. Let's see if I can kill him. All right, so I killed him that time. But every time you miss, that uses a turn. Whether you miss or hit the monster, it's then going to be the monster's turn to attack you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn around here and start. Oh, so you can see another monster wandering around on here. This is one of those ones that's very different for a dungeon game. Why is there a giant... ostrich-like bird in the game? This is actually an emu. Not very good lighting right here. Let me follow. I'm gonna have him follow me over here a little bit so you can see him better. Okay, so this is like, and you can see there's a little bit of skinning issue there. So that's one of those things that we need to work out and make nicer looking before release. This large flightless bird was in the original Rogue game. It's like an ostrich, but native to Australia. And why it's in a dungeon, I have no idea. But the first couple levels of the dungeon, this is one of the very common creatures. You have dungeon creatures like the hobgoblin, bat, snake, pretty typical things. But then you have these random wild animals like emus, a kestrel, which is like a falcon, is on the first level, a bat. And as you go further into the game, one of the more powerful creatures is a quagga. A quagga is like an extinct type of zebra from Africa. So let's see if I can make some emu meat here. Oh, that didn't take much at all. He was totally weak. But anyway, so who wants some emu? It's kind of hilarious and also a little bit terrifying when you encounter these in the game in VR. So that's pretty much it for the playable demo. I'll go ahead and throw my little weapon away there and explore a little bit so you can see that the dungeon is fully decorated and interactive. Not all of it can be interacted with. These chests, for example, you can open the chest and look inside. Some of them will have treasures inside of them, and some of them may actually be mimics that are not real chests at all. That's where you'll actually start the game, is coming down from the outside of the dungeon or from a previous level of the dungeon. So as you go through the dungeon game, you're going deeper and deeper into the dungeon levels. Now, this is a room that shows an example of how it's visually stimulating, but not all of these things are interactive. Now, I could add physics and collision and things so you could grab these bottles and tankards and throw them around the room, but it wouldn't affect the gameplay. You couldn't use them as a weapon or anything. It could be fun, but it also might reduce the performance. So that's something we'll look into if we need to increase the interactivity or just make it a little more realistic and fun. But as of right now, it's just a cool decor. You'll know when you can interact with items because your hand will make the item glow as you reach for it. Not every room in this dungeon is lit. Some of them are very, very dark. See, here's a corridor that is unlit, and in those cases, it's actually very hard to see things, such as dropped items. You might see just a silhouette of a monster coming towards you. Here, I don't see anything down there. It's just fog and darkness off into the distance. So exploring and using your map is incredibly important. When I look down at my map here, you can see the rooms, the outlines of the walls and rooms that I've been to, and a small red dot to show me where I currently am, as well as an avatar showing myself, which will have the equipment that I equip once that functionality has been added. So that's where we are right now. It's basically in an alpha demo phase. We need some battle abilities added, scrolls, and archery, and at that point the game will be ready for playable demo release.